Next up, I'm going to introduce Max Rivera, Global Partnerships at Snapchat, and he's going to talk about the future of social and commerce.
Thank you. Thank you. Set this up. There we go. Nice. All right. Perfect. Should be good to go. Let's see. Yeah, nice. All right, awesome. Really glad to be here. It's such an honor to be presenting and talking to all of you. I say this to everyone, but I mean it. I want to start with that. Just being amongst this group and this community is just such an honor, and it's been so helpful already for my career. So thank you for being a part of it, and excited to talk to you today. I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself first and my background. So I'm originally born and raised in Honduras, and eventually made my way to New York. Very happy to be in the weather here in Miami today. I moved to New York with the dream of working in advertising. So I moved to New York a long time ago, not as long ago as that might seem in the screen, but that was my dream, was to work in advertising. And I was just really lucky that some of the biggest advertising agencies and brands trusted this young Honduran kid that was trying to make it in advertising. And they basically, allowed me to help them how to figure out technology and what to do right with that technology. And so again, entrusted this young kid from Honduras to work with them and figure out how to use technology, which in my industry in advertising, technology at the time looked like this. And I had all these dreams of working in advertising, and I was in New York, and I was working on these tiny little ads on phones, which is kind of disappointing, right? And I started just thinking and realizing that although there was a ton of technology in the industry, and the industry had evolved a lot with technology, finding better ways to reach people, find the right audiences, a lot of big data to measure campaigns and effectiveness and all this stuff. From a creative perspective, there was actually not that much of a change, right? So we went from black and white video to colored video on a smaller screen to colored video on an even smaller screen, right? So not a ton of evolution there, which again was kind of disappointing. So it got me thinking, the phones, these new devices that we have, they're not just a tiny little TV that we have in our hands and in our pockets, right? They're fundamentally different. You can do so much more with your phones than play little videos. And so about 8 years ago, the startup called me up, see if I wanted to join. I went up to my boss at the big advertising agency and said, I'm leaving to join this startup. And so I joined Snap. And I said, I want to work in the future of advertising, which kind of looks like some of the examples that you're seeing here on the screen. And so I took the journey about 8 years ago and joined Snap along that journey. And so, with that context, today I'll talk about the future of social and commerce. Here's what you can expect. I think I'm going to mention AI twice, so I'm trying to keep that at a minimum. JC did a beautiful job covering that, so I don't want to talk about that too much. You won't hear about chatbots either, not because they're not exciting or the future, but just want to give kind of a different perspective. You'll expect to see some Snap examples, but it's also not just about Snapchat. I'm not here to sell you on the company and talk my own book, but you'll see some examples, but just know that it's just for reference there. So kind of give you a broader perspective of how I look at the industry and what the future of, again, social and commerce from a consumer standpoint is looking like. So to start, starting with a big question of what is social media? It's just such a complicated term nowadays. So maybe some memes helps us kind of understand that. I love memes. And so here's some of my favorite ones, a little biased because of my role at Snap. And, all jokes aside, all the news headlines, and I'm sure you all can relate, that all these social media platforms, whatever they are looking all the same, right? They all kind of have the same features. They all kind of do the same thing. So in our industry, we're kind of facing somewhat of an identity crisis of what we do and what we represent. And so, I strongly believe actually that the term social media just nowadays is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It can mean everything. And so it doesn't really have such a strong meaning. And I think it's better if we separate the two terms and digest them separately. So again, that's why the title of the talk is Future of Social, not Future of Social Media. It's specifically talking about the social part of social media. So the social part would be anything around communication, how we talk to each other, anything around messaging and how we connect with people, less so about the media side of things. Again, just to set the expectations on what you can expect. And so when I think about the landscape, I actually think it's more of a spectrum of where these platforms fit within that social and media spectrum. So I've created this little chart to help illustrate how I look at the landscape. It might be completely wrong, by the way. It's just my view of the landscape. And so I'll explain kind of what I mean here. And the important thing is that although the apps may seem the same, they have the same features, they all have stories, they all have filters, they have video, they have messaging and DMs. They're actually fundamentally different. And hopefully the chart kind of helps explain that. So we'll start on the media side. I think everyone kind of understands that YouTube and Netflix are different, although they're both video apps, right? But I think we all kind of understand, we maybe don't even think about them in the same place. They're video streaming apps, but they're different. And the difference that I like to see between the two is one has more professional produced content and the other one has more user generated content, right? And that actually changes their entire business model, changes how they operate, changes how they monetize, it changes how much they moderate, editorialize, changes really everything about the business. And so there's that, again, spectrum within that. And on the social side, we'll use another example, WhatsApp and Gmail, right? Both text-based messaging apps. They may seem very similar, but we know we use them a little bit different. And here, the difference that I like to highlight is how much we use them to talk to strangers. That can include businesses and brands, all those email spams and things like that. Or how much we use it to talk to friends, people that we know, family, coworkers, anybody that we kind of know, right? So along that spectrum, you actually maybe realize that WhatsApp and Gmail are more similar than you think. Because you're talking with some friends and people that you know, some coworkers, but more and more too, you're talking to brands now, especially if you're in emerging markets. That's how you communicate with your airline. You communicate with anybody that's providing a service to you. So WhatsApp is a lot closer to email than you might imagine when you actually kind of look at it from that perspective. And this is how I look at the rest of the landscape once you put some of the main platforms along that landscape. And so I'll keep it up there for a second. And again, this is just my view. Might be completely wrong. You might have different opinions. And I would love to sit down and debate at some point some of this stuff. But in the interest of time, of course, we're going to focus again on the social side of all of this, right? So in the future of media, there's a ton of stuff, a ton of AI stuff, very exciting things happening on the media side of things with influencers and creators and all that stuff. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the future of social, how we communicate with each other, how people are messaging and connecting with each other. So we'll focus on that. And so looking at communication today, most of all communication looks like this today, right? Around the world, whether it's WeChat in China, Line in Japan, or WhatsApp in Latin America, Asia, in the States, that's how communication looks like, right? For most of us today. The question is, what's next, right? What's the next form of communication? Where's this going? Where's the puck going to in terms of communication? So we'll look through a little bit of a history of the evolution of communication, very quick and very visual. So enjoy the visuals there. So one of the things to keep in mind with communication is that it is always evolving, always evolving from mail and letters to fax, telephone, email, so on, right? There's always evolution in communication. And we're always basically looking for more efficient and effective ways to communicate, to express ourselves, to connect with each other. Humans are always in search of that, right? It's kind of human nature to look for that. And it usually starts with a kind of small group of people. These new revolutions, right? These new kind of communications or forms of communication would start with a niche group and then eventually grow from there. And things like texting a few years ago when it was coming up, you would never imagine that you would be getting texts from your mom or grandparents for some of us, right? Like that was unimaginable at the time. And now, how many times do you get texts from your moms or grandparents, right? It's like unstoppable. And so it's just interesting how, again, it starts small, but then eventually kind of makes it to the masses. And another trend that's happening, more lately is that communication is getting more visual. And I know a lot of you here, because we're in the group chat for Angeles, love the stickers and emojis and things like that, right? So if you start to realize that wasn't the case maybe 5 years ago or so. Now we're sending a lot more pictures. We're using stickers and GIFs and memes and emojis and all that stuff. So communication is starting to become more visual. And so again, back to the question, what's next, right? We've had mail, telephone, fax, SMS, text, chat. And you might be surprised that the data shows that the next form of communication is the camera, So, we'll explain what that looks like. And so here's a typical conversation that we might have today over text, right? This is what it would look like. And that same conversation would actually look like this if it was done through the camera. And really is that, pictures are really worth 1,000 words, right? You can describe so much more in a picture, much easier than typing. You can just quickly kind of snap something and share it with people, right? And actually, Gen Zs and millennials, this is the primary form in which they talk to each other. They were born with a camera. Literally, I just had a newborn too, for those that know me. First thing that you do with a newborn is put a camera in their face, right? Take a picture, right? And they had phones with cameras since they were born and grew up with that. That's again Gen Z and millennials. And so they're very comfortable taking a selfie. They don't care what they look like. It doesn't even have to be pretty. They're just talking, right? They're not saving that photo. They're not doing anything. They're using cameras for conversation, which is very interesting. And I think a more relatable example that I think we can all relate is video, right? Video calls. How much time do we spend on Zoom and on video calls? And kids spend a ton of time FaceTiming each other, live streaming. So maybe that's a little bit more relatable, but it's the same form of communication. You're using cameras now instead of just audio. You're using cameras to power video conversations, right? And so again, maybe you don't realize it, but you're actually communicating through the camera every day. If you're on Zoom, if you're on Google Meet, now through the live stream, right? So it's happening. Like we're all communicating with the cameras more and more. And it's that evolution that communication is getting more visual to the point that it's fully visual, right? We're fully communicating through pictures. And so this has really like revolutionized what cameras are. We thought about cameras as these like clunky devices. They were expensive at some point. They were hard to use. And so cameras have really evolved and they're universal. Not only in our phones, we have cameras in our cars. We have cameras even in refrigerators. There's mirrors with cameras. There's glasses with cameras, right? So cameras are everywhere. They're really ubiquitous now. So they really revolutionized. And actually, instead of being hardware, cameras are way more about software now and what they can do with the software. And so when you connect cameras to the internet, when you use things like computer vision, machine learning, here's my last time using the word AI. So when you connect that, cameras are a lot more about the software capability than the actual hardware itself. And then what does that software enable and that technology enable cameras to do? So we'll show you an example of what we've done at Snap, combining all of this technology into the camera. And hopefully we'll have audio playing for this one.
Hey, Snapchat, make my hair pink.
And so it's leveraging all that technology to make this very delightful experience, right? They're using all of those different capabilities, and through the camera can provide those sort of experiences. And that technology, all of that combination, and what you just saw is called augmented reality, which you might have heard the term, right? Or AR. And so for those that like to get technical, I put together like a somewhat of a short description of what augmented reality is and how it works. So it essentially uses large language models to train a computer, right, to identify things in the camera's view. And so you feed it millions of pictures of faces, and it then learns that's a face. Whenever I see a face, I can then do something, right? So you then trigger some sort of effect or rule when the camera detects that object. You can do the same with any object, a car, mouth, parts of the face, right? And that's how you end up being able to put digital glasses on people's exact location on their face, because you've trained a machine to know where that location is, and then you tell it, put this 3D asset on that specific point where you recognize that. So that's how augmented reality works. And I have a simple explanation, and that's how this happens if you've used that, right? So it's all that technology to work to make simple things like this. And this is Snapchat's first augmented reality experience about 9 years ago. When the company launched this. And maybe some of you, maybe all of you have tried this and didn't realize that it was all of this technology behind all of that, or that it was called AR. And that's perfect, right? Consumers shouldn't know that what they're doing has all these technologies and things happening in the background. They should just know it's fun. And I can use this to send pictures to my friends, or I can have fun with my kids playing with this stuff, right? That's all that really matters for consumer experiences. And these are other examples of that technology, of things that we do at Snap with that same technology, that same concept of being able to recognize objects and then trigger effects based on those objects. But it not only can be fun and joyful like that, they can actually be really useful. So you can use that same technology to identify math problems and provide a solution right away. You can identify ingredients and provide recipes. You can identify things for shopping, translation to learn languages, right? You can do a lot of very useful things as well as fun and joyful things. And one very important point, which you'll make me hear a few times now, is that AR, this technology, is not something of the future. We're not talking about virtual reality, which is a similar cousin here, but it's not the same. It's not some meta-tistical future world of cartoon avatars and wearing big headsets. It's not that. That's maybe in the future. AR is of the present. It's of today. We'll show you some data. And again, I'm not trying to talk the own book here, but just as a reference point, because I know we all as investors like data points, right? So on Snapchat alone, people use augmented reality. 275 million people use augmented reality every day. That's the scale of the behavior. And it's a daily behavior at this scale, right? Maybe some of you say that number is not big enough in the grand scheme of things, right? Global population, people that are online, maybe that number is not that large, right? So as reference points, Twitter in its peak, in its heyday, the beginning of 2021, right after the elections and after COVID, when people were using Twitter in masses, they announced 192 million daily active users. Twitter seems like it's everywhere, right? Everyone kind of has Twitter. 192 million dailies. More recent case, Netflix, 3 weeks ago. Everyone has Netflix, right? They announced amazing results. The stock is through the roof. They have 260 million monthly subscribers. So just put that into perspective when you look at that number and how much it's happening today. Again, not of the future, it's happening today, and it's a daily behavior. And it's not just a Snapchat thing. That would actually be a red flag. If it was just happening on Snapchat, that would kind of be weird or niche. It's everywhere. And you might not realize it. Again, it's a consumer experience, so you might not need to call it that, but it's everywhere. Social media apps, Google Maps has augmented reality, Amazon has augmented reality, Target, IKEA, Lowe's, tons of apps have augmented reality. Google now gives you augmented reality search results. It's everywhere. It's in every major tech company is making and has been making huge investments in augmented reality over the last decade. And studies by Deloitte show that by next year, 75% of the global population will be frequent users of augmented reality. And you see the growth trajectory there over the last 5 years. And so it's a massive trend. It's a massive technology that, again, is happening today. So it kind of begs the question, what does this mean for businesses and for commerce, right? That's the other part of the conversation of the presentation, right? The future of commerce. What is the implication for consumer businesses? And I'll focus on consumer. There's a ton of applications on the enterprise side, right? There's a lot of exciting stuff there. But on the consumer, commerce side, what does it mean when you recognize that people are talking through the camera and talking through pictures, and that this technology is here today at this scale? And what are the implications? And that's the work I do at Snap today, actually. My day today and the work of my team is to partner with brands, consumer brands, to help them leverage this technology for their marketing and advertising. And so some data points, some consumer insights, 7 in 10 consumers already say that they are interested in using augmented reality in their purchasing journey. And so there's many ways that brands can participate. I'll show you some examples, of the work that we do day to day at Snap with some of the biggest brands who are all leaned in this technology. You'll be surprised when you see some of the logos and brands, but all of your favorite consumer brands are leveraging this technology and doing experiences for their customers. So as we said, cameras and AR is kind of conversational, right? It helps people talk. And so there's ways that brands can join the conversation. These are great examples. The Coors one in particular, I'm not a beer drinker, so it's not why I like it. But it's just so conversational. It says, who wants to grab a beer this weekend? And it happens to be a Coors ad. And think about how better of an ad that is than the tiny little video that we were looking at before that you quickly skip right away, right? Like this is a very different branded and advertising type of experience. Brands also create entertainment-based experiences to just have consumers interact with their brands in totally new ways. So you see some examples here from Apple and from McDonald's. So you can create really cool kind of entertainment and interactive experiences. You can also create experiences that interact with the real world. So here are some of my favorites. This one with Transformer for their latest movie. We were actually able to transform real cars and make them into actual Transformers. leveraging this technology, right? And that's how they did, the promotion for this movie for people that are on Snapchat and for the people, younger audiences, Gen Z and millennials that are using this technology. Or the other one from Pampers, targeted to parents. They're able to turn their boxes into these interactive stories that you can enjoy with your kids, right? It's just amazing, brand experiences that you're able to provide with this technology. But most importantly, this technology is also helping businesses' bottom line. Like it's driving purchases and it's driving revenue for them. So according to a Harvard Business Review study, 94% higher conversion rate when you have a product being sold through AR than not AR. Again, we'll see what this looks like at Snapchat and some of the work that we do with retail brands.
Can you show me a windbreaker jacket?
And if you're not quite sure and want to see other styles, just say it.
Maybe something with a pattern.
Using natural language voice commands.
That's awesome. Take a snap.
And think about how different that is from your typical e-commerce experience. When you go on a website and just see little pictures of models wearing these products, where here you can actually see the products and how they look on your own. It goes from just being something that looks good on a website and on a picture and actually looking good on yourself. And so you're more prone to buy it, obviously, right? And so being able to provide those experiences is key. And like I said, it's delivering business results. It's delivering actually, impact to these businesses' bottom line. And you see here some of the results. Again, not trying to pitch, Snapchat at all. This is happening elsewhere too, right? They're integrating AR with other platforms and on their own website. So it's happening, across the board, not just on Snapchat. And just to wrap up, just a view of like the future, because actually what we were talking about for most of the time was the present. So we'll spend only the last few minutes really giving a peek to the future and what's coming, right? So it's not just on your phone. AR can happen anywhere that there's a camera and a screen. And so we at Snap are integrating with arenas and bringing this technology to stadiums for music festival, for sporting events, for concerts. We're bringing it in store, and I'll show you this great thing that we did with Nike. We're bringing big mirrors and screens to stores to transform the in-store experience.
Ooh, I think I can style you. Okay, give me fly. Cheers. Okay. Okay, here we go. Yay! That's so fun! No, I gotta snap this. This is sick. Did you get one? Yes. Oh, we gotta scan this. And we get 15%. Oh, we would love to see it.
We're doing other innovations. So we're trying to think, where else can we put a camera and a screen? So we partner with Coke to transform their legendary vending machines that haven't changed really, much in the last, decades. And so we put cameras and a screen on a vending machine that allows you to, use that technology to order a Coke, without even touching the machine. It recognizes your gestures and you can talk to it, and then, gives you the product and makes a more, fun experience. And of course, there's going to be new form factors. There's going to be new hardware that is in development. Some of it is already in market. We're experimenting with this. It might not be ready for prime time. It might take still some time, but there's new devices and new form factors coming. A lot of hype around this, obviously, in the last few weeks with a player like Apple stepping into the arena. They released a mixed reality headset, which is slightly different. We at Snap released something 3 years ago that is a much smaller form factor, and those are called augmented reality glasses, so different glasses versus headset. And I'll give you a peek of some of the things that people have been doing with those glasses. Again, they're not ready for prime time. They're not in the mass market. It might still take 5 to 10 years, are the experts' estimates for these to get to the masses. But you'll start to see a sneak peek of the things that you can do. And again, obviously, Apple has been really proving what you can do with headsets on productivity and all that stuff. But you'll see kind of what we're imagining for the glasses and the smaller form factor.
With every advance in tech, we actually allow humanity to express itself more fully with each other. So what wearable AR means for the future is that computers are going to start to see from a more human perspective. When you couple that with voice ML,
Yes.
3D hand tracking, and connected lenses, no longer is the brain just in your pocket. You're now allowing technology to see from your own perspective. And with these advancements in technology, we're actually allowing us to express what's been inside all along. create the world you want to see.
So exciting future. That's all that I had for you today. Hopefully it was interesting enough. And thank you again for the time and the opportunity to be up here with you all. I can take a few questions if we have time for that, or otherwise, I don't know how we're on timing, but yeah. Okay, great. If anybody has it, no pressure. No need to ask. Cool. Yes. Cool. You can ask harder questions too, if that wasn't harder. That's a very tough question. So I'll give you my view, I think, of like maybe who not to trust, right? And I think there's players in the space in technology and in social media that have been very bad actors when it comes to platform safety, user safety, mental health, data protection, right? And I think we kind of know those players, and so it's actually a little scary that obviously they're just continuing to grow. At Snap, and I again not here to kind of talk that book, but the company was born to almost be an antidote to those players, and fundamentally is very different. So very simple examples that again make a huge difference. There's no likes on Snapchat. There's no follower counts. You have no idea if you have 5 friends or 10 friends, and nobody can see if you have 5 or 10 or 20 or 100. There's no public comments, and there's no private sharing. So sorry, public sharing. So you can't really go viral on Snapchat. And now a lot of people say, but why, right? Like that's cool. Like that could help you grow. You could do more things. But in fact, again, they fundamentally said, we think those things, have their place and have their benefit, and we want to build something different. And so they've created a private ecosystem where when you send these pictures, you're only sharing it with your friends. If we went back to my landscape slide, Snapchat is way up there in the friends section of that spectrum, because you don't talk to strangers on Snapchat. You don't talk to businesses. You just talk to your closest friends. And again, there's no public likes or comments, or you don't care how you look, you're not worried about. And so hopefully those principles, and these companies are really good about copying technology. And our hope is that they also copy some of those principles and get adopted more widely. Somewhat answer your question, but it's a tough one outside of my pay grade. Thank you. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I don't know if we have studies, and nothing comes to mind, but anecdotally, I think you're totally right. They were born in this world where everything is shared with businesses and their data is just in the public. And so I think they're, for better or worse, more used to it. And unfortunately, because these companies are advertising based, I started my presentation with that, right? That's my background. At the end of the day, all of these companies make money from advertising. And so that business model is inherently tied to maximizing data to make the advertising a better product. And so that's not something that I think I could, even from a Snapchat perspective, say, data privacy is different or a huge priority. We protect it from bad actors, but at the end of the day, the company is trying to extract and know as much as it can about the specific users in order to better serve the advertisers and build that product. And so it's a tough subject tied to the business model. And hopefully new business models like subscriptions maybe, start to get better around that. But as long as it's advertising based, there's going to be data maximization across the board. Yeah.
All the examples of brand. Pick your budget.
Yeah.
Right? They have all the money to spend on money to experiment.
Yeah.
But how does that work with brands that might only have a 5 or a 6-figure budget? Is Snapchat willing to sit down at the table with a smaller brand and want to experiment with something, or want to get in but can't spend whatever it costs Coca-Cola to create that?
Yeah.
And that, how do you guys work with smaller brands with a great story to tell them want to access the 275 million people?
Yeah.
AR every single month per day.
Yeah. I mean, I love that question because that's our North Star. And anybody that wants to build a huge advertising business like Facebook and Google needs to service the SMBs, right? And not just these big enterprises. So I love that question. We've developed tools to make that almost no cost and self-service. To do the most complex advanced stuff, that will always have a higher cost. But we've developed self-service tools that we can literally spend 10 minutes in a workshop and you all create filters for your brands or for whatever you want, for a birthday, for a celebration. We've created very self-service tools where we have 3D assets available where you can pick and choose, customize them, put your logo on, add some animation. You don't even need to be a designer or programmer in order to do those. And that's available for anybody to launch at no cost. It's entirely free. And then you pay on the advertising side. So if you want to target specific people and promote it, then you pay an advertising fee to promote that. But you can build it entirely for free. And it's relatively easy. I'll say it again because it's questions. I get one more AI. AI will make that even better, right? Because you'll be able to create these things on the fly. As a small business, you'll be able to say, generate a 3D version of my product, and it will generate it, and then you'll be able to launch these things much, much better. And so that will get better too. Will become more accessible for brands of all sizes too. Yeah. Are we good on time or yeah, we'll wrap up? Perfect. Well, thank you all. Hope again it was interesting.